Hello, gamers. Welcome to the first episode of the Foundry VTT 101 course. I used to run this course as a free webinar on startplaying.games, but for the sake of simplicity and schedules, I'm moving this over to YouTube so that anyone can watch it for free at their convenience. If you choose to watch each episode of this course, you will be very well informed about what Foundry is and how to use it. We'll be doing everything from looking at computer specs and hosting options to creating full adventures with maps and journals and tokens and audio. Who is this course for? It's for virtual tabletop users who may be considering moving from one VTT to another, and they're wondering if Foundry is the right platform to migrate to. It's also for people who have just purchased Foundry VTT and may be overwhelmed with the sheer number of options that this platform offers. They may be in need of a strong tutorial that can point them toward getting their game up and running quickly. Finally, this course is for Foundry VTT veterans who may have been using the platform for an extended period of time and may just be wondering how their fellow GMs run their own instances of Foundry. If you fall into any of these categories, welcome. You're in the right place. In this video, we're going to be talking about the following topics. Who are the big players in the virtual tabletop community? How much does Foundry VTT cost? When you purchase Foundry VTT, what exactly does it get you in terms of use and licensing? What are the hardware requirements for running Foundry VTT? And how can you host your own games using Foundry VTT? There are lots of great virtual tabletops out there: Owlbear Rodeo, Tailspire, Alchemy, and plenty of others. However, there are three VTTs which have a majority of the market share. The first is Roll20. If you've ever used a virtual tabletop before, chances are it's Roll20. The interface is simple for players to navigate and to use, and it's by far the most popular VTT out there. The next is Fantasy Grounds. Of all the VTTs, Fantasy Grounds probably has the most diverse collection of licensing agreements with game developers, which means that even the not so popular gaming systems are available for purchase in a ready to play format. Rounding out the top three is Foundry, and it's best known for its amazing levels of customization and automation. It also has a bit of a reputation for being complex when it comes to setup and execution. Hopefully, by the time you're done watching these videos, you'll have a better opinion about whether this reputation is earned or exaggerated. So, how much does it cost to run your games on Foundry VTT? The short answer is $50. But as you'll see, that answer depends on how you're running Foundry. Before we get into any additional costs of running Foundry, let's assume that we've just paid $50 and we've got our license key. What does that actually get us? The Foundry website is really great about showing examples of what a single license can do. I've taken the text from their site and simplified it into some images here. The Foundry license allows you, shown here in green, to run a single game for any single group of people, shown here in white, at any given time. So this group could be playing a game of D&D, or Pathfinder, or Call of Cthulhu, or any other system, and your $50 would cover that. Note that your players do not have to purchase Foundry VTT to play. For them, it's completely free. The Foundry license also covers a private instance that only you are running with no other players. So maybe you just finished a D&D game for your group and you want to leave the connection open so that they can level up their characters and do some shopping. But you also want to go back to a private copy of the same D&D game and make some edits to your campaign based on the choices your players made during today's game. A single Foundry license will allow you to host one instance for players and one instance just for you at no additional cost. But let's say that you GM more than just one game. In this example on the left, you're running a D&D game from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. You get done with that adventure and close that game. And then, an hour later at 2 p.m., you switch to running a Pathfinder game for a completely different group of players. In this instance, because you're running only one group at a time from your Foundry, there is no extra cost. So, when would you have to pay more than $50 for Foundry? Well, let's take the same scenario we had before, but change just a few things. Here on the left, we still run our D&D game that ends at 1 p.m., but this time we leave the game open so that our players can stick around and level up characters and do some shopping in the game world. On the right, we still have that Pathfinder game starting at 2 p.m., but this time, because we're running two games for two groups simultaneously, we would need to purchase an additional $50 license for our second instance of Foundry that's hosting players at the same time as the first instance. Let's talk about hosting next. There are three different ways to have players connect to your game in Foundry VTT. The first is self hosting. This is where you download Foundry and run it from your computer using your internet. Everything is local to wherever your computer is sitting right now. The good news about this setup is that it costs you nothing to self host. So if you chose this method, that $50 is all you're ever going to pay for Foundry VTT. In addition, all of your maps and tokens and images and music and campaigns are right there on your own hard drive, so you have direct access to all of your resources. The bad news about this setup is that you are your own technical support. If you're a computer person, or if you can barter an afternoon of computer services from a friend at the low, low cost of a couple of beers or a pizza, you're all set. Whoever is setting up Foundry will need to know about routers and port forwarding at a minimum in order to get the other players to be able to join your game. If you want to secure your Foundry connection with a signed certificate, that's another level of technology you'll need to be proficient with. Now, at its core, none of this technological know how is particularly difficult. There are plenty of tutorials available from the Foundry website and on YouTube, so it's definitely something you can accomplish. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the number one Foundry troubleshooting question asked on social media is: I just downloaded and installed Foundry, my game is up and running, my adventures are loaded, why can't my players connect to my game? And most of the time, it's because either the person who bought Foundry doesn't have the necessary tech background to set up the connections, or they've run into technological exceptions or corner cases whereby some internet providers make it really difficult or even near impossible to port forward. So just be aware, you are your own tech support when you self host. Option number two is cloud hosting. This is a slight variation on self hosting in that instead of using your own computer and your own internet, you're using someone else's computer. That someone is most often a well known server farm like Oracle Hosting or Google Hosting or DigitalOcean. The good news is that the tech issues with your players connecting to Foundry should no longer be a problem, because each of those hosts does all the networking stuff for you. You just upload Foundry and your maps and your tokens and your music and your maps and your adventures up into the cloud and start your Foundry instance. In some cases, as with Oracle's free tier of hosting, this may not even cost you any money. The bad news is that most of the time, it does cost money. Hosting plans vary, but it's safe to say that they fall somewhere between $5 and $10 per month. So the $50 cost for Foundry really isn't just $50 because now you're paying a monthly fee to host your game on someone else's server. Option number three is partner hosting. This is the Cadillac version of how to host Foundry. The good news is that everything is set up for you. Foundry is already set up and waiting for you on the server. You enter your token that you got when purchasing Foundry and upload your maps and tokens and music and adventures, and you are good to go. In addition, any issues you may have with your Foundry setup are 100% supported by a team of tech personnel who deal with nothing but Foundry VTT. It's like having your own personal staff dedicated to making your game run properly. The bad news is that, like cloud hosting, this option may not be cheap. There's a very large range of pricing here, anywhere from free to $46 per month. However, these are both the extremes. Most of the time, a partner host costs somewhere between $4 and $12 per month. Fair disclosure, I use partner hosting. The main reason for this is that I'm really, really lazy. I work IT all day long, and the last thing I want to do is tech support for my favorite hobby. So I opt to pay about $12 a month so that someone else can deal with all the tech stuff. As of this recording in 2025, there are 4 partner hosts you can choose from. The Forge offers 3 tiers of plans, which cost between $4 and $12 a month. There's a free preview option for you to see how their interface and their hosting performs before buying. Square offers 4 tiers of plans ranging from free to $15 a month. It should be noted that although Square is the only partner with a free plan, it's a very restricted plan that limits how many games you can play each month. But it's great for trying before you buy. Foundry server is made by the same folks that make the virtual tabletop we're talking about today, and it offers the widest variety of hosting tiers, 6 in all, which account for the wide range of hosting between $5 and a whopping $46 per month. It should be noted that the top tier plan is custom crafted for professional game masters who charge money to run their games and who may host many, many games that require lots of heavy duty hardware and plenty of storage space. Rounding up the lineup is Molten, which offers 3 hosting tiers and costs between $4 and $12 per month. So now that you know what the options are for hosting your Foundry VTT game, let's take a look at what the hardware requirements are for each type of hosting. As per Foundry's website, if you choose to self-host, you'll need to have these requirements. However, I've gone ahead and simplified these so that they're a little more streamlined. Basically, if you have a computer that was made within the past 5 years, you should be able to self host. The real test for self hosting is the speed of your internet connection, specifically the upload speed. As per their website, you'll need at least 12 megabits per second. Be careful that you don't confuse this with download speed, which is how fast you can grab files from the web and put them on their computer. You're looking for upload speed, which is how fast you can take files from your computer and put them up into the cloud. Because if you're the one who's hosting, that means that you're the one who's sending maps and music and tokens and special effects to each player in the game directly from your computer to theirs. The hardware requirements drop considerably when someone else is hosting Foundry, such as in the cloud or partner programs. In these cases, you only need worry about your computer in terms of connecting to the cloud. Again, simplifying these requirements, I'm going to say that as long as your computer was built within the past 5 years and you can stream YouTube videos in full HD quality without stuttering or stopping, you should be fine connecting to Foundry VTT. Please note that Foundry was only made for use on laptop and desktop computers. While it's possible to make the VTT work with tablets and phones, it is not a good experience. Congratulations! You've just completed the first video in this series. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have one hell of a good day.